Hello, this is James Cook of the University of Maine at Augusta, and I'm recording this video to talk a little bit more about the idea of setting, to talk about the idea of variables, to talk about units of analysis, and to talk about the idea of a population. So I'm outside here today. It's a beautiful late spring day. I can't wait for summer. Where am I? I am in a grassy lawn area, right? So in this grassy lawn area is my setting. I'm on a lawn. Now I can think about wanting to study something that has a characteristic. What could that be? Well, that could be the grass. So in this particular case, each blade of grass, a blade of grass is my unit of analysis. So the entire population of the blades of grass is my population. It's a huge population of blades of grass. If I wanted to characterize a variable, a characteristic of that grass, it might be the length of those blades of grass. And I could spend a lot of time trying to measure those blades of grass, each one of them, right? And that would be hard because there's so many thousands of them just in this one lawn area that to do them all might prove to be technically feasibly impossible for me given my limitations of time. So I might need to do something like sample just a selection of them, and how I sample them might affect my results. So we'll think about that later in the class. But let's review. We have the setting of this lawn, right? We have a unit of analysis. What we're going to measure, the unit that we're going to measure and analyze is the blade of grass. We have a population of all those blades of grass. And you can imagine if I had all the time in the world, I could measure a variable for each one, like its length. So I could take to operationalize, to say I'm going to measure the length of a blade of grass. I could describe exactly how I would measure the length of that blade of grass. I could say I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to go up to a blade of grass and I'm going to put that ruler on the ground, and then I'm going to stretch that blade of grass as high into the vertical plane as possible, like that. I'm stretching it up, and then I'm going to see what the number is that I reach when it gets to the top. And in this case, that would be 3 3/4 inches. Okay, so that description of how I actually measure length, which actually took a few sentences, is its operationalization. Okay, so I have for that one blade of grass a measurement of its characteristic. That characteristic is the variable, which is length. And then I could go and do that for every other blade of grass. And then I would have a set of data for this lovely population of a late spring lawn. Let's continue looking. Here I see a tree. It is a young oak tree. Let's walk over to it. So I could say, here I am, and I have a young oak tree. For this young oak tree, it could be my setting. And I could have a population, which is all the leaves. Here's a leaf, a lovely oak leaf. And I could have a unit of analysis, right? Which is the individual leaf. The population is all the oak leaves on that tree, right? The single unit of analysis is the single leaf, and I could measure its length. And I could have an operationalization for that in which I say something like, I will take the leaf, I will take that individual leaf, I will grasp it, I will stretch it into the horizontal plane, I will line up my ruler and I will see what the number is at the greatest extent along the horizontal plane, which is 2 3/4 inches. So I have a measurement there, an operationalization for my units of analysis, so that operationalizations are useful, so that when I go ahead and ask someone else to do that measurement for our data, right, for a similar tree, or if I wanted to get someone else to help me measure the length of the leaves, all the leaves, the whole population of leaves on this tree, they could do it too, and they would get the same measurements, so that we get consistency in measurements, so that the measurements are reliable, which is really, really important, especially if we start thinking about much bigger oak trees and wanting to generalize about what oak trees are like and what their leaves are like and what the length is like. Operationalization is important. So, setting, variable, unit of analysis, population, operationalization. You can do this sort of work too. Look to see what's around you in your area, whether it's at school or at home, and think about how you could find a setting, a population, a unit of analysis, a variable, and then operationalize it. Do that for your physical environment, and then you can start to see how that would apply to your social environment as well.